Mine is relatively okay so far. It's a lot of organization, and I
Mhm.
have my targets that I want to hit each day. And like everybody, sometimes I hit them and sometimes I don't. And when I hit them, it's great. And when I don't hit them, I need to rethink a little bit about the processes that I have in place and stop the voice in my head, which is um, just the excuses,
Mhm.
uh, basically the procrastination. Um, yeah, the I will move it or
I
put it.
don't understand. Like those people who doesn't have any procrastination, just no one go and do.
Well, that is that's probably that. The two sides to that. The positive side to that is being comfortable with yourself, not caring what other people think or feel, in the sense that you don't want other people to influence you too much or in a negative way. And this can drive you forward if you're powered by positive intent and emotions. Love and
Mhm.
empathy might be examples of those. Um, then on the other side, you have the focus-driven narcissist who's basically just trying to externalize their own internal pain um, because they haven't dealt with their problems yet. So
Mhm.
yeah, both of these things drive us forward, but one of them generally has a positive effect and one of them generally has a negative effect. Um, that's why the greatest element or roadblock in our lives is always us. It's always us. We tend to point the finger at everybody else, but life becomes so much simpler when we accept responsibility for everything that
Mhm.
happens to us. Every single element, every single problem. I'm here because I put myself here. That's why I'm here.
Mhm.
I'm here because I put myself. I could put myself anywhere. Um, and we it's a mixture of things. Sometimes we follow the the patterns that society gives us. Sometimes we follow our own path. Both of which can lead to success. Um, when there is a problem, it requires that we reflect on our own actions and not worry too much about other people because they've got their own problems to deal with. They've got their own voices in their head telling them what's right. So I have no idea what is right for anybody else because I barely have an idea what is right for myself. So um,
Yeah. Well,
and anybody who doesn't know you, um, yeah, anybody who doesn't know you can't really make a decision about what the right thing is for you. And I think that in the world, most people are not able to open themselves up enough to allow people to know what the real person is or who the real person
mhm.
is inside. And so people give and get a lot of advice, but whether or not it's it's useful,
Relevant or based
yeah,
on some information or on knowledge about that person. Yes,
yeah,
it is use,
yeah. I did look at
useful or useless.
uh, well, both are important because we have to realize what is useless and reject it, and realize
Mhm.
what is useful and accept it.
Mhm.
Yeah. And this here we have this ridiculous dichotomy, which is we by accepting we automatically reject, and by rejecting we automatically accept. Because to to say no to one
One
thing
thing.
is to open up an opportunity to say yes to something else.
Mhm.
Um, so uh, a strong, firm no to somebody else might be a very positive yes to the self and what the self needs. Like, it's that simple principle of, I think that I know what I need, and most of the time I'm probably right because I know myself better than most other people. But that also doesn't mean that I should shut myself off, because there's the greatest opportunity for correction is through reflection within society and seeing how other people react to what we do, because we are we live as clans, tribes, groups of people, and to survive in society, you have to belong somewhere.
Hmm.
Um,
Yes, it is very hard to live on your own and look after your own food, clothes, medication, and everything, place to live and sleep, and
well, it's impossible, basically. When you try to find examples of people who have done that, it's always ended rather horribly and terribly. They've always got, really, they always get sick or ill and want to solve all those problems themselves rather than go to a hospital or speak to a doctor or somebody who can actually, someone who actually has more experience than them in any particular area, because you appreciate and respect a person's expertise in their area. Beyond that, don't listen to them at all. Right? Or listen to them, but be wary of taking their advice, because the philosopher understands philosophy better than car mechanics, right?
True.
So it is very unlikely that the philosopher is going to be able to fix your car, and it's very unlikely that the mechanic is going to be able to recite Aristotle, Socrates, and Plato. Not that they can't be useful in their own ways, because whatever you do in life, you use that to relate to your experience and to understand things. So you work in a school, so what you do is you take that work and you try to understand and see how that applies in the real world. Interaction, communication, commerce, and that helps us build the picture that we have. Why is there conflict? There's conflict because people's pictures are different. Everybody's red is a different red. Yeah, so even when we try to agree on things, and teams are great examples of that. There's no team that exists without some element of failure. Collectively, we're better, but there's always something somewhere that's failing. Key tip for the week. So I interviewed a video gaming company last week for a project that I have. And the project is I go into businesses and I interview the owners and directors about successes and struggles, and get their little nuggets of wisdom, which wisdom is always found in the most unexpected places. Like if you go out and specifically look for intelligence, you will get closer to it, but you'll probably find what you're looking for when you least expect it, because solutions appear like that. We need to put ourselves in the right place, in the right space, in the right zone. But you can't. It's very hard to manifest a thought. It just kind of happens. So it happens when you create the right environment and the right space for it. So I was interviewing this the chief technical officer of this company, and he was telling me that for every one video game that a company makes that is successful, they on average make 15 to 20 games that are unsuccessful.
Whoa, that's huge to compare, like 15 or 20 unsuccessful.
And
and one that.
what you're talking about here is professionals. These are professionals
Mhm.
who are experts in their industry. Now,
Mhm.
if you're not an expert in your industry, you
Mhm. What's the percentage? Mhm.
right, you
High.
maybe one in 100, right? Maybe.
Gosh.
Yeah, and this is an explanation of how hard it is to have an effect on reality.
Mhm.
Yeah, because we tend to think that we should get things right first time,
Yes.
and
Miracle. Mhm.
look, it helps if we get things right first time. But have, have you ever have have you ever tried to like kick a football or a ball and try to get it to go to a you know specific
Yes.
person or specific place or whatever, and you
Been
kick it, you kick it, and
Yes,
right,
different
right.
size of a ball, different kind of a ball, different surface.
Yeah, yeah. Just,
Mhm.
just, just stand and watch some golfers play golf for 10 or 15 minutes, right? And
I'm at a
see,
golf course.
yeah, there you go. So,
Mhm.
see where the ball goes. Yeah, and
And it looks very much the same. Each move, each person is doing.
yeah, and wherever
Mm.
the ball lands, you have to play it from there, right? You can't move it, right?
Mhm.
Um, so there's there needs to be this constant correction and this idea that we're going to get things right first time, or that there's a lot of stuff that I think we intelligent people realize, oh, I should know this, but I don't. But it's okay because I will. I'll get there. I'll get
Mhm.
there. I'll get there eventually. So it's yeah, it was enlightening for me to realize that there's 15 to 20 games created by a company before they will create one successful one, and they're building and making and testing the market, and it's it's very interesting that that's what it takes to be successful. You can't you're not going to get it right first time, or most people are not going to get it right first time, and if you're part of a team, it gets even more complicated. If you're trying to impact a larger group of people of society, then that gets even more complicated, which is when people turn to belief rather than fact, because it's easier for them to just feel that it's right than check if it is right. Yeah,
Mhm.
and um, you can't. And here's the example: you can't cook on belief. You have to check you've got the right ingredients.
Or some households are you believe you you believe you have everything at home. You come home and you realize no, a butter bean was
Yeah, yeah.
eaten.
If you ever
There is no more butter. Mm.
have you ever seen a communist try to cook? Uh, Right? Because
No, it's a joke, is it?
well, it is because you can't create something from nothing.
True. Even the fairy tales, the stories for children talking about a soup from a stone, it's like,
Mm,
and
mm.
yeah, secretly
Why
adding ingredients.
why why are we teaching children that magic solves all problems?
So they
And
would believe and they wouldn't give up,
oh yeah, yeah,
or
that's the positive.
why?
That's the positive side. Absolutely. You
Hmm.
know, you keep at it, keep working, and you'll find an answer. However, take any Disney film. There's usually that there might be hard work and reward as part of it, but there's always in the background some strange element of magic solves all
Magic.
problems. Yeah, which is far too easy,
Hmm.
because that places uh, gift over talent and hard work. Yeah, and the truth is, to master anything requires hard work. It's not it's not difficult and complicated. In that, to know that that is the path to take. Doing it's different, right? Doing it is different, and as a result, we all well.
Cockatoos.
I
I apologize. They
feel
are
it's
fucking
okay.
crazy birds.
It's okay. I feel like I'm in Jurassic Park, but that's okay. That's okay.
I wonder where she's going to take me next week.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. Today I'm in Jurassic. If you told me that you were in Jurassic Park, I would believe you right now. I would believe you.
Do you want to have a look?
Oh yeah, go on. Yeah, that would be kind of cool if you can if I could see what you see. That would be really interesting.
Now I just have to figure it out how. I turn the camera. Oh, here is the button.
Oh, check that out! Wow, there's a tree and
small pond.
like a small pond there, and the birds are in the tree. Yeah.
Not sure if you can see. There's one up.
Oh, flying away.
There.
Yeah, I got it. Wow. Wow. No, it's signs of life. It's okay. Signs of life, right? So.
Road in the distance.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good to live next to elements of nature. It reminds us of what is real.
I love it to take a dog in the morning or after a busy day. You know, it's magpies are here in spring, and here is a bird in nesting, feeding the little ones. He got used to me now. Yeah. Oh, I didn't want to do this. Now I can see myself like enormous picture. I want to see you rather than my own face. How can I do that?
That's okay. It's a nice face. That's okay.
Technology.
Yeah. When it works and we know how to use it, it's great. Otherwise, it's a little bit of a problem. There we go.
The world of technology. I laughed when I listened to that last week conversation. The power of the technology.
Well, it is. There's no and to relate to the last point, there's no difference between advanced technology and magic. Yeah. There's no difference, and that's an Arthur C. Clarke quote, the writer and futurist. And yeah, he's quite right. You place any piece of modern technology, or you give it to somebody 100 years ago, which is not possible, but you can imagine doing it. They would think that you are a magician or a wizard or a witch or something like that. And
yes.
The important thing to understand from that is that technology will help us, but it won't save us. Because no, it won't save us because people need to help people, and we can help people through technology. But at the end of the day, people need to be at either end. There's a want from some elements of society to have technology in control of certain things, and
something has changed, and I can't balance myself, but I'm listening. So people has to be at the both ends. Yes, people will help people.
Well, they will.
The technology.
They will, as long as we remain human. Now, here's an example of how complicated it is. Take the work of a doctor or a surgeon, and a lot of problems with medicine are related to human error. Doctors will either prescribe the wrong medicine, which happens regularly, much more regularly than people would like to admit, because doctors have no clue what the problem is. Right? They really don't. It's very difficult to see.
Because all the symptoms are very similar.
Or maybe I was reading a little while ago that there are actually very few basic symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
And because there are so few basic symptoms, it's really, really hard to exactly understand what the problem is. What's the problem? I'm in pain. It hurts. Right. There's a great old story that man goes to the doctor and he says, doctor, my whole body hurts. And doctor says, what? And the person says, look, like my whole body hurts every time I touch my shoulder, I got pain. I touch my knee, I've got pain. I touch my foot, I got pain. I touch my head, I got pain. And the doctor and the doctor says, broken finger.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think I heard that joke in back in
yeah,
Slovakia.
yeah, yeah,
Yep,
yeah,
broken
yeah,
finger. Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm.
So,
It's a good one.
um, so the doctors are unsure, and what that means, and also if you're a surgeon, you're performing an operation. It's kind of interesting because each person is unique, but it is quite possible that technology will develop to the point where robots will perform operations and surgeries rather than doctors because it reduces the element of human error because the robot doesn't feel. Yeah.
Mhm.
Now, that also has a negative side because each person's body is different. And so sometimes it's not clear what the right thing to do is. And you have to make an instinctual decision. But at the end of the day, most people will go with the robot because it's easier to drive a car than ride a horse. Uh,
I never, never
because,
ride a horse, but yeah,
because
it gets you where you need faster these days. Mhm.
it does, it does, and it it speeds up the processes, and the car will go where you want it to go. The horse might not, right? I've
True.
I've had that experience of horse riding where I want to go this way, but the horse wants to go that way,
Mhm.
and the horse understands because the horse is an intelligent animal. The horse understands that I have no control, and that the horse understands that the horse is much bigger than I am. Um,
Mhm.
so, in fact, that's one of those life skills that where you can learn like a million things from doing one thing, like riding a horse,
Mhm.
because it's mastery over an animal which is bigger and stronger than
Mhm.
I am, basically. And if you can develop that kind of mastery, it shows an an understanding and builds a lot of confidence. And that
Mhm.
that's why it's good for kids to do horse riding, not just because it's horse
It's
riding, but
fun
because
and looks cool.
it's
Mhm.
yeah, it's also a dangerous activity as well. So you're learning all about safety, and it's people die falling off horses, so it's
I can
uh,
imagine then a child falling off that stick, but you put them on smaller horses or
you do, but you get yeah,
still.
but you yeah, and as an example, you don't use the example, right? You don't let we don't let teenagers drive cars, but we can let them ride horses. Both are pretty dangerous activities, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
obviously a car, the argument is you could kill somebody else, but hey,
True.
have you
Mhm.
you ever compared adults and kids at computer games? Like how like um, right
Yeah.
right
Mhm.
how kids pick things up really quickly, and if you've got like
Quickly.
I've got one of those like driving games that my son plays, and I've got
Mhm.
like two wheels set up so we can race against each other, and the modern games simulate quite well a lot of
Mhm.
the physics and reality of driving. It's not exactly the same, but it's not completely different either. You got your
Mhm.
pedals and you got your steering wheel, and I play against my son at this, and he beats me every time. So like the we never really know if they're ready or not, and we could be wrong. Maybe they're ready long before. Maybe they're ready long. long before. Like, in the past it was traditional for children who were age 5 or 6 to drive tractors on farms. It's a pretty responsible activity. Who was it that was it Benjamin Franklin had his own newspaper by the time he was 12 years old? Yeah, he was printing and running his own newspaper. Uh, um, how quickly would society advance if we got out of the way?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if we
And
stopped telling
stopping.
if we stopped telling everyone what to do and let them decide for themselves what it is that we want to do. Now, the argument on the other side is that the world the world would fall apart because we know best.
Yes.
But my ego is not big enough for me to say that I know best.
Okay.
It's just not. I don't know. But I do know if we limit opportunity, then we limit opportunity. You don't know what's going to grow from other things happening. Admiral Farragut was the first admiral in the American Navy, and he took charge of his first ship. I think when he was 10 years old, he was captain of a ship. Yeah. Now later he became like the first admiral in the American Navy, but he was considered at the age of 10 the most qualified and experienced person for the job. We don't want to automatically assume that giving everybody large amounts of freedom is always the answer, because there might be some people who are not ready to accept that kind of responsibility. But in a nurturing environment with, what are people afraid of? Drugs and alcohol. Who fucking brought the drugs and alcohol to the kids? Who's fucking manufacturing it? Who's selling it? The adults. It's the adults that are manufacturing and selling the drugs and alcohol to the kids. Not the kids. The kids are not selling it to the kids. The adults are selling it to the kids. Yeah? So the kids are not in any... We're worried about the kids. Not fucking worried about the kids. We need to be worried about the adults. It's the adults that are fucked up, not the kids. So...
Mm.
this... The... it's... It's interesting the idea that we automatically assume that everything that is in place within systems is going to be the things that are the best way forward. Perhaps here's an example. Perhaps if the Wright brothers were forced to go to school and forced to study and blah 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 and given jobs, and there'd be no planes. There'd be no planes. Planes would not exist, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't exist. So most of the great advances and developments that occur outside of the box. The only things that are going to happen in the classroom are classroom activities.
The limit, but that's what is provided. Mm-hmm.
That's a massive limitation, because the classroom is not the world.
Mm-hmm. Still, there are some allowance. There is something what can be created. But more like.
Well, here's the conundrum or the problem. If a teacher makes time for creative activity, then that's still structured. We need to have some unstructured time. Well, that's an oxymoron. Because your unstructured time is then structured.
Mm-hmm. Or learning based on children interest and on.
Oh my God! Learning based on the kids' interest, right? But the kids can only use what's in the classroom.
True.
Therefore, the kids
think like, okay, you're interested in trains, so what am I going to do? Give you what? More trains, different shapes or size, or like, yeah, but it's limited. Mm-hmm.
Well, the resources in our environment limit our physical activities. They don't limit our imagination, though. And imagination is, I think, a lot of the times the difference between success and failure in life, because imagination is the magic that brings you the answers.
Magic, imagination.
You see, it's the same root.
Imagination. Uh-huh.
Yeah. In fact,
I.
magic, imagination, even words like magazine has its root in the word magic.
Magazine.
Yeah, magazine. Um, Now, it also has its root in military terminology as a place where guns and weapons were stored. That was one of the original Arabic uses of the word. But you very much magazines. Well, magazines deal with imagery. Imagery is part of the imagination and part of what's used to change people's ideas and opinions. You know, it's very hard to believe in God if you don't have an image of God.
Ah.
Because then what do you believe in? Something that you don't have an image of or can't imagine? Well, it's beyond the imagination. Well, if it's beyond the imagination, then you can't really believe in it, because it could just as easily not be real because you don't know what it is. And there's a long-standing philosophy amongst intellectual people that religion is more diversion than fact, because the more intellectual you become, the more fact orientated and based you observe the world. However, at the other extreme, a lot of scientists who study how everything works believe in intelligent design, which is the fact that these elements of life couldn't have happened by chance because everything seems so perfectly organized. But that's just because the scientists themselves are not very organized, and they can't imagine that anything more organized than themselves exists. A lot of them. But it's one of those interesting problems, and from the perspective of a teacher, you know that your occupation is your limit, right? Your occupation is your limit. If you see yourself as a teacher, you limit yourself. You have to see yourself as a human being, essentially.
Yes.
And not the teacher is a word that we use to communicate something to other people, but it's not really what we do. Yeah.
We're not teaching.
It's a word that communicates an activity that people understand, but it's as useful as saying there's a bottle of water on the table. It completely avoids what the bottle is made from, what's in the bottle, what's holding the bottle of water on the table, gravity, molecules, all the exciting and interesting stuff is, because because giving something a name translates for a lot of people into understanding it, but it's not a real understanding. Yeah, it's like, oh, we give a person a name because it's a simple way to define them and recognize them, but it's not who they are. It's not who they are at all. We use it as a reference point, but it's a very poor way of describing the complexity of human experiences that people have. And it doesn't help.
Sounds better than a number. First number. The unique number. Like I still can tell you mine.
Yeah,
which was given and allocated to me after I was born. Still, name sounds a bit better to recognize me in the system, but yes, they will always ask the authorities.
Well, a name is a name. Yeah, we've got names backwards. We've got names backwards because names originally were descriptions of what people did, but now we name people. But now we name people before they do anything.
Yeah.
which it sort of doesn't make much sense. I mean, um, and it's actually not that complicated. I mean, if you go and you know look at the etymology of what a person's name means, and very often it actually gives you a little bit more information about the person themselves, because we can't use something without it having an effect.
Mm-hmm. So are you saying if we give a child a name, then that name has an impact on the child who they become?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The same way that if you give, as an extreme example, if you give a boy a girl's name or a girl a boy's name,
Mm-hmm.
it affects them psychologically. Now that's an extreme example, but it works in all cases. It works in all cases, and it's a subconscious example of what we would like them to be as we try to shape them, but we're not even aware of it ourselves, because we tend to, this name is so popular, we're going to choose this name because whatever, it's popular. But yeah, well, the names that we give things matter, because words are an external expression of our internal experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's all we do with our words. We express externally what is happening internally. Yeah. Oh, you're a philosopher. Well, it's just an expression of the fact that there's all this
Happening.
all
Mm-hmm.
this happening, all these thoughts going through my head, and everybody's head's a little bit different. So the which relates back to the fact that our our job is much more an attempt to control our internal issues as it is an attempt to help the external world.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you know how many teachers are unteachable?
98%.
I don't know what the percentage is. I just in my because the whole point of being a teacher is that you should always be open to everything, and
Mm-hmm.
be continuously learning. Well,
Mm-hmm.
that's you can instantly rule out 50% of teachers with that definition, because they're not always growing, they're not always learning, they're not always pushing boundaries, they're not always open to different ideas. Um, it's terrible, and so so 50% of teachers are automatically setting a bad example for the students around about them.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Was it you or who told me when one was talking about work, and still I see so many things I can improve and do better, and it's kind of like frustrating because the current workplace, I've been there for more than 6 months, and I feel like, oh, I should know this or I should done this better. Always improving. But was it you or another friend who pointed out, like, if you know everything, why would you be there working?
oh, it's
Would
a
be
great point.
boring.
I don't think I have said that, but it's a great point.
Mm.
We Yeah, if that it's also a great retort if someone says that there's some problem, you can always say, well, if I knew everything, I wouldn't be here, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'd, I'd be somewhere else. Yeah,
Now
it's
I remember who said that. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So yeah, it's a good point. It depends if it's used as a real understanding or just an excuse for making a mistake. But it's very true that when we understand that nobody knows everything, we take a giant leap forward, because we tend to realize that we all make a large number of mistakes, and we shouldn't let that bother us too much. And progress is different things to different people. Is that the same birds that I can hear?
No,